HR karta kya hai? If you don't have a good office environment, if today's Gen Z would not even come to office. Sometimes you really want to do, you want to be creative. The startup gives you that creativity.
Someone finally realized कि boss, people are the core of business. Thank God. Somehow I feel L&D is getting the seat at the table.
The person has vented out their problem with their manager because there's some issue happened on the floor. When we reached out to the person that, are you okay? They said, no, I just wanted to vent out. Why would somebody talk to a chatbot? But today's Gen Z is very different.
Hello and welcome to the Superwork podcast. मेरा नाम अनिरुद्ध है and in another episode we have another fantastic guest with us जिनको मैं बहुत briefly introduce कराने वाला हूँ because I think she needs to tell what all work she does because she does a lot of work. Frankly, introduction करते बैठेंगे तो फिर बहुत time निकल जाएगा. So I'm going to introduce her quickly and in a very short way. We have Priya Tikhe with us, my college senior from my MBA days.
Yes.
That's the first thing I need to tell you guys. And of course the site HR leader for Allstate India in Pune. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very, very happy to be here, Anirudh.
I'm happier that you're here. Awesome. Asha, I need to really ask you about your role because first of all, Allstate के बारे में maybe not everyone knows,
Yeah.
but Allstate is a very interesting company. So you definitely need to tell briefly about what Allstate does. And then I want to know more about your role because the kind of work that you're doing at Allstate is amazing. So why don't you tell me?
Okay. So Allstate, in short, if I have to tell you, it's an LIC of United States of America. So if in India, everybody knows LIC, people just know Allstate. I still remember I was in Chicago 2 weeks back and I was at the at the counter of where the custom officers ask, the first thing when he was looking at my passport to move me out of the, airport to Chicago town, he said, oh, you're from Allstate. So I didn't even had it. I was wondering,
Nice.
everybody knows Allstate here.
Nice.
So it's an insurance company in short. Not really life, but it is into auto insurance. They are into property insurance in US, property.
It's big.
Is pretty big. So they're into property insurance, and I manage their global. I'm part of their global capability center in India, and I manage Site HR Pune. And other than being just the Site HR, I'm also responsible for the Center of Excellence, which is business HR and HR shared services for India as such. Yes.
So what all does an HRBP do? Because it's a relatively new role, like a decade old or so maybe. HRBP का role
around 10 years.
थोड़ा evolve हुआ है.
Correct.
Did it evolve from a certain function or was it like finally people realized that someone needs to be a mediator, a liaison between business and people?
I think if you remember our college days, we used to read Peter Drucker, personal management books. Then we had Robbins' OB, organizational behaviors, etc. Some of the things have not changed. What has evolved is earlier HR was more in the generalist role. Today, if you see, HR has evolved from being a generalist, becoming a specialist role. So there are many specialist roles in HR. You talk about learning and organizational development. That is one center of excellence. Then you have talent acquisition, recruitment that you talk about. That's another center of excellence. Then you have HR shared services that I'm talking about, managing onboarding to offboarding of people, the whole experience part of people. And the last but not the least, of course, the business HR, which is like in the value chain, which is like the horizontal, which cuts across all these COAs and which is also an intermediary between the business and the COEs.
Correct.
So nowadays, for business, the buck stops at business HR. So if there are any special requirements or alignment they need to do or any support in terms of advisement, mostly it is done by the business HR roles. And these are fairly consulting kind of a role. Mostly you'll find quite senior people who are doing leadership advisement kind of a role.
I think HR is really evolving well for good.
Yeah.
Because I think now, not just HR, of course, even L&D for that matter is getting seat at the table.
Absolutely.
And I think that's bringing in that positive change. But I'm sure there are still a lot of misconceptions about HR. Especially people who work in smaller companies, and nothing wrong with it, but I'm just saying that so many people work in smaller companies, smaller teams, 50 people, 40 people, 100 people max. 200 people max. Right? Wahan pe the HR function is a little limited versus thousands of people that you guys work with, similar with other corporations as well. What do people get wrong about HR still? How long can we go, right?
Oh, so then let me go back to our college days, Anirudh. If you remember, I still remember some of my classmates. Imagine you have not even come to the industry. You're not even part of the corporate.
Yeah.
You do just summer internship and you come back. And, there were jokes. I still remember we were only 10 of us who moved into HR in our batch, and all of them, one of you were like in the marketing or they were part of the finance, master's program. So I still remember some of them used to, HR karta kya hai? Was like a very loose statement. See, it's like culture in any organization. You cannot gauge a culture. You cannot. Culture over a period of time gets built, right? When you say, "Oh, this company is very highly bureaucratic," or "This company is very hierarchical," when you make such statements, there are some things that you would have observed, right? And you conclude. I feel HR is something similar. HR is a role which sometimes certain COEs you can measure very easily, but there are some roles you just can't measure, because it's how you create that zone and create that credibility that business starts seeing a difference. Business becomes profitable.
Yeah.
You are the backbone. You're not in the front. It's the business, the sales, the profitability. But to ensure how the sales become successful is what I would say HR or most of the corporate functions do. Forget about even facilities. People won't even talk about facilities. Why HR? If you don't have a good office environment, if you don't have a rejuvenation center,
correct,
today's Gen Z would not even come to office. They look forward, but nobody appreciates what facilities has done, isn't it? So, because they are the ones who are actually creating that aura and environment for you. Correct. I think that's why it's evolved and it's still evolving. But I feel the credibility of the role is how you enhance it. In startups, I would say, like you were talking about startups, I have worked for startups. From large companies going back to one of the urge I had when I was part of a large company, sometimes your role becomes monotonous. You are in a particular vertical and you are doing the same thing because after a few years, you want to be creative, but there are some bureaucracy that peeps in, all Correct. Said and done. And Correct. You'll have to wait for the approval process to happen. Yeah. You're part of a large organization, etc. And whether it's part of the large vision. So the match between your personal need and organizational need has to be there. Yeah. Or vice versa. Yeah. I think that sometimes triggered me to move to a startup, and you have to, even if you have to clean the office, you have to clean the office as an HR. Yeah. Let me honestly tell you, I think in a startup, you have to do end-to-end everything. Everything. I feel I learnt more getting my hands dirty being in a startup than I would have ever done in a large organization. In fact, I became more humble also. I would be very honest to you. Sitting at the top and watching how things are happening or not is one feel-good factor. But sometimes you really want to be creative. The startup gives you that creativity. It's your space, isn't it? This is your startup, isn't it? This is your podcast. You create content. Yeah. You create whom you want to call. Correct. It's you calling the shots, isn't it? The freedom of working, I feel, in a startup, and the evolution of HR also happens in a startup very well. I feel every company, rather, in the beginning, the kind of thing you can do and the kind of space you have to really create new things is something I would say both has its pros and cons, is something very exciting, I would say, for a lot of us. I feel when you are part of a large company, somewhere you also have to create a startup culture there. Otherwise, you'll get bored. I remember one of my CEOs in one of my companies used to say, think like a startup. Yeah. Otherwise, you cannot innovate. Yeah. Even in HR, for that matter, if you don't think, if that is the goal of the company, you are also a startup owner. Correct. Being in HR. Yeah. You have to start thinking how I can create new things to ensure people are willing to come to office. Every day they want to say, this is the place I want to work for.
Correct.
So it's a creativity you have to bring in, isn't it? Constantly. So that's the thought process.
Intrapreneur.
Intrapreneur. Oh, we've used it so much, I believe. Yeah.
Right. So, but is it really possible, like in a bigger organization where you sort of end up as a cog in the wheel, not necessarily downplaying someone's role, but वहाँ पे doing the startup mentality becomes very tough then, because see, startups are like quick, fast, dirty, like फट काम करो. But फिर वो ultimately थोड़ा सा it gets stuck, no, in like a bigger organization. But हाँ, I think at a team level it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
कि मेरा ये budget है, I want to get this project executed. Like, do I have, all the permissions that, you can give, and then, my responsibility, like, get it executed.
Within your space, you can be creative.
At a particular level, yes.
I would say the limitations is in our mind, isn't it, people? I'm not giving gyan here, Anirudh, but it's true. It's in my mind. I feel if I put an idea, okay, and I feel if it is aligned to the organizational vision, mission, goals, and if it is tossed off, so then it's a discussion that I might not enjoy being there. But then if there is an and your credible, as I said, your idea and how your idea gets into execution mode, start with a small thing. I always say start with a proof of concept. We have this model in any startup, like you have POC. Start with any model which is a POC. Amazon always says, right, do something, fail fast and come back again.
Correct.
I think that mindset, if you have, there's no limitation.
Correct.
And when you're bringing an idea to your CEO, or for that matter, your stakeholders in the organization, your idea has to materialize.
Correct.
So there's no limit whether you're a part of large or small. But somewhere in my mind, I was thinking the space and freedom sometimes is limited for sure, because you have to go through various levels to get your idea through. So the time, probably in a startup like, so it's a fast-paced culture, right? An idea to get into a closure might take a week or sometimes just a month. And probably in a large organization, it might take 6 months.
Yeah, a lot more time.
A lot more time.
But I think वहाँ पे, of course, it's the long-term game. एक बार decision हो गया तो फिर हो गया. Then you generally, you stick with it and, play it.
Yes.
It's not a quick, fast, dirty wala game.
Yeah.
But so much of changes are happening now in HR. Like even the role HR BP, it's a fantastic role. I love this one particular role in terms of this vertical, because see, someone finally realized ki boss, people are the core of business. It's not the profit, it's not the numbers, it's not sirf customer. It's the people who are driving that business, right? Ultimately, this change is, and of course, I mean, I'm not someone who's updated with what's happening, what's the latest thing in any vertical, and especially HR. But how is the future like, in a sense? What's the future with AI, automation, all these things coming up? What is HR going to see? And with changes in HR, what's going to happen to the organization, to the people who are going to work in it? Kitna changes are kya hai? Like, I mean, of course, people keep saying, "Arey, mera job jayega, AI." People, I think that's a very too general a statement. But what's in the future?
You're right, general statement, but at the same time, what stage are you in your career?
Good point.
You will get redundant if you're not constantly upskilling yourself. So AI, there is all possibility that AI might close some doors, but it can open some new doors for you if you upskill yourself.
It will definitely open more doors.
More doors, rather.
Yeah.
So it's all. So I'll talk about an example. 2014, we are talking about AI. I mean, I remember one of my companies, my CEO said, new CEO, he was like, and he wanted to reach out to all 10,000 people. And he said, how can I do that? And those days in 2014, WhatsApp became very...
the new rage.
The new thing, Everybody was on WhatsApp, everybody. And that app thing suddenly picked up in the new generation. So I realized, okay, reaching out to people, can we create an app? The idea just came, and it evolved into such a stage that, of course, the vision of my one was just reaching out, the other is response, and other is what kind of sentiments are coming as a response. So we created an app of sentimental analytics.
Beautiful.
Imagine in 2014 when nobody was even talking about it, and just to show off a little bit now on your podcast, it got patented also in US, by the way, patent
Fabulous.
office, not in India.
Congratulations.
So those days the idea was very new, and we had an appetite, and the vision was of somebody that, okay, I want to create a transparent culture where the CEO is available. And of course, it created a lot of, when people, can reach out to your CEO directly, you don't have hierarchies or bureaucracy, so-called. It opens doors. I mean, people can talk anything, isn't
Yeah.
it? It was the social media app of the company.
Yes.
Today, you're talking about Instagram. Those days, that was the Instagram. They could write about a facilities problem on that app.
Yeah.
And the CEO would have a visibility of that.
Correct.
So it became tough for those leaders also to adapt and move. So, and it showed the sentiments that where is the problem? What is the issue? So I think today, if you ask me, HR business partners, most of us have are dealing with large population, right? One is sometimes some companies like big companies, Tech Mahindra, TCS, they have like huge population, isn't it? One is to HRBP would be like thousands today. It has become absolutely inevitable to bring sentimental analytics because today a bot can reach out to you and capture your emotions. So there are intermittent, you can define intermittently how you can reach out, and the app just reaches out and captures, okay, today Anirudh is in a foul mode and he's upset with the manager. Maybe 1 month later, when the bot reaches out to you, Anirudh is calm, and then another 3 months later, Anirudh is extremely elated because he's got promoted, and then 6 months down the line or 1 year down the line, Anirudh is in a status quo. So the trend of your mood, where you started to where you are today, is completely shown in a sentimental analytics. So a lot of data comes out, a lot of content comes out of that. And through that content, a lot of decision making happens. We know whether today this guy is going to go or stay, or this girl is going to leave us or, stay with us for long. So a lot of sentiments you can check, and your attrition, biggest outcome for me has been in the last few years that you can immediately address the issue there and then rather than waiting for the cows come home, like our professors used to say in our class. Wait till the end of the year for the annual survey to happen. Wait for some pulse survey coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you do a pulse survey or an annual survey? Gone are those days. If you're doing it, there is some problem. I'm telling you, you're not even in the game.
Correct.
And AI is giving you a platform where you know a sentiment in a second about a person, and you can address it there and there rather than waiting till he said, okay, I'm going now.
Correct.
Nobody even reached out to me. So that's how I feel AI has taken over. So today in my company, our efficiency has increased 8x. So we were 1:650 when we didn't have this sentimental analytics product. And today we are actually running at 1:60, 70. So a chatbot can reach out on an average to 1:60 people, imagine. Wow. So the efficiency, so I whoever quit, my team is half now.
Wow.
Yeah. So maybe if I started at 20, today we are sitting at 10, and the bot is doing all the job and the data analysis, and we present and we stakeholders are able to address the issue there and then. So it tells you if there is a group issue going on, is it a trade union leader there? It tells you, okay, this is the problem and this is a high performing group. So it can do mind boggling thing if I tell you.
Crazy. I came across sentiment analysis a few months back.
Is it?
And I was like, damn, amazing.
Yeah.
And but this whole big data is captured, and of course you're saying that the trend is analyzed and you get a lot more data points, insights, so to say. Are people comfortable sharing genuine sentiments?
Absolutely. You hit the nail.
But probably it's easier because it's not a person in front.
Yeah. In fact, this is the question now. So we had some questions, of course, when we were proposing this. And of course, same question came from the leaders. Why would somebody talk to a chatbot? But today's Gen Z is very different. You know, I've had cases where the person has vented out their problem with their manager because there's some issue happened on the floor. When we reached out to the person that, are you okay? We wanted to know, since we got to know that you were upset and you wanted to talk about it. They said, no, I just wanted to vent out. Thank you. But for reaching out, somebody is listening to me. That's all they needed. It's a space people can just voice, whether they want an action. Not everybody, probably out of 100, maybe only 20%, it's a Pareto's law, 20% only need action, but they have a space to vent out. Social media and this whole, whatever you call it, Gen Z, they don't want to talk to a human anymore. They're more comfortable talking to a bot. Surprising change, I tell you. Even I didn't know whether, to be honest, it would work. But last 1 year, it has been a success for me. Wow. So attrition has come down. We are able to address the issue there and then. So I feel I'm also learning on the go, to be honest.
I think these trends will slowly seep in, and we also, even our behavior changes and we don't realize this. Tell me if you've experienced this post COVID. I might be completely wrong because I'm living in a particular circle. My network is different, yours is different. After COVID, people have stopped calling directly. People have started asking for appointments to do a phone call. Have you noticed it, or probably not? So, like, generally, you would just pick up your phone and call someone.
Yeah.
Like, especially clients. I'm not talking relatives and stuff. Right? But now people say, hey, what's a good time to call you? I don't know. Is it post-COVID? I've seen this a lot. Like, people messaging me and me messaging people. You tell me if you've seen this.
I have seen this. I would also say people have realized, I feel, if I really see it from my perspective, I don't know how the world thinks, but today I feel, people have realized the importance of time. So when they say, would you have a minute? I think the respect for your time and empathizing with you and your time has come. Earlier, I'll tell you, even today, sometimes my daughter was teaching me the other day, I was on calls and back-to-back calls and I didn't have time, and she came inside 10 times in my room and she said, are you free now? I said, maybe after 8, maybe after 9. 8 went to 9 and the call came. Then, at 10 o'clock when I shut down, I was a bit exhausted. Then she said, Mama, you have to learn to say no sometimes. It's okay to tell people that you don't have time. That's a Gen Z talking to me. Yeah. And we are that group when we used to pick up call and never say no. Yeah. We were so empathetic, kind. And she said, but you have to be kind to yourself also. And I realized there's nothing wrong of this side. They are much more ahead of us. Sometimes I feel we were so much in dunyadari, to be putting in a nutshell, in so much of... always pleasing. Yeah. You don't realize the time that you need to yourself. I think so true. It struck a chord. Yeah. Okay, I have to be kind to myself and say, it's okay, I'm not available. I can also be kind to others to check if they would like to. Yeah. So I feel there's nothing wrong. That's the new way of thinking in my mind. Yeah. But yes, it also has a flip side, if I be honest to you. Picking up the phone and talking to a friend should not ever. But that close inner circle is something that you have to choose. You can't do it to all. So we always have an inner circle, isn't it? An outer circle. It's a choice you have to make, that whom you want to pick up the phone and talk, and whom you want to probably talk the time. Probably.
Correct. Yeah, with friends, I think it's still easier. But I think professional relationships, I don't know. I mean, I somehow felt it was either because of COVID or what. And even, yes, I mean, it was that time when people just got sick of online calls. Like, because the whole world existed on calls.
Calls,
Now,
yeah.
thankfully, of course, we are, meeting
It was
in person.
worst rather. In COVID, I believe we worked for more hours than.
Oh, yeah, of course.
In office, at least you used to have a cup of tea and take that break. But in COVID, it was no time, non-stop, 12 hours. There's no time. It just went on.
Yeah.
So sometimes I feel it's okay. This hybrid model gives you some
breathing space. Yeah.
Breathing
That's
space.
There. That's there. But I think, and coming back to sentiments and how people's sentiments are also changing, because of course the world is changing. New trends are coming in. Technology keeps changing. What we use today didn't exist a decade back. Imagine. I mean, the concepts that we learned 20 years back are absolutely useless.
Yeah, you're right.
Most of the books that we read from.
Some of them are not. But
some of them,
right.
Of course.
We were just talking about something. But yeah, in the realm of the world that we are in, for sure, I think technology is taking over. Yeah.
And upskilling is so important. As you were also saying that you need to keep upskilling. And thank God, somehow I feel L&D is getting the seat at the table. Because learning is so crucial now, and making sure that people learn is very important. But what I've seen, and I might be wrong, is log na L&D ke be it courses, be it requirements from the L&D department saying you need to finish these either courses or you need to do these tests. People are like, ho gaya. I've done it. The tick in the box hota hai. They might not even grasp what is being told. It's just people are doing it for the sake of it. Abhi bola hai, ye to karna padega because it's attached to my performance review. So ye karna padega. But is there a shift coming in L&D?
The shift has happened from here. We used to call it training as a word.
Correct.
You are using the word learning now.
Yeah.
So the shift has happened from the word itself. So you train the dogs. I'm sorry. I'm just saying that you use training as a word has been always used to train a mass in one particular skill. So earlier in the manufacturing sector, because of just-in-time, Japanese just-in-time that came, you have to release a product. You had to do a same job in the same way.
Yeah.
So people were trained. If you have to put a lid to a box, there will be 10 kind of people who will be putting a lid to the box in the manufacturing, right? Correct. Conveyor belts would move. So the training word was very, very prevalent in the manufacturing those days, sectors and all. Today, when you say learning as a word, it itself says a lot. It means you're seeking something to learn for self and for the others. You're not thrusting what you want to train. Okay? You're seeking what others' interests are, aspirations are.
Correct.
It may be aligned to your organization. It may not be aligned to your organization. So in my mind, learning there has been a transformation in that. We are now going and understanding business requirements, business needs, people needs, individual aspirations, and aligning it to the larger aspirations. And very frankly, if you're not part of that aspiration that the organization have, your learning curve would be completely different. So you can just move. So
how do you do this mapping? Who does it?
So there is a team called Learning and Organizational Development, OD, that we studied in our good old days. So these are the two groups who really reach out to people and understand. Sometimes business might not even know what they want. Understanding the business, what are the requirements, what are the struggles they are going through, purely sometimes by observing and sitting in the room with the business. The challenges there, it could be people, team challenges, productivity challenges.
Correct.
It could be your sales meeting challenges, numbers challenges. It could be anything. Sitting in the room, observing itself would tell you what is the problem statement. And then you carve out and go with a framework and, of course, with your plan to the business and, kind of do the whatever you deliver.
Lovely. And it must be a great learning opportunity in general, like directly jumping from L&D and OD to learning from people. Because when you work in a global organization, you get to work with so many people and beyond just your city, right? How has the learning experience been in terms of learning from people, learning from colleagues, learning from people beyond the geography that we exist in?
Yeah, I think my travel around the different countries really helped me, polished me, let me tell you.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Give me an example, maybe. Maybe something that you
So I'll tell you one very interesting experience in South Africa. I was in Johannesburg.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it was so called. I was so scared to go because everybody said after 7 you can't get out
Yeah.
because they'll shoot and there's a lot of robbery and there's a
Yeah.
lot of thing. But of course, I was sent for some work there, and one of the weekends I had gone to a theater to watch a movie, and I went to the counter. And in India, what do? You typically go and say, "Do ticket, 2 tickets, please," right? To the counter fellow, the ticket counter fellow. So there I said, 2 tickets, please. Just he did not give me the tickets. He kept on looking at me, and I didn't know what did I do wrong. I said 2 tickets, please. Again, I repeated, okay, and he said, "Hello, how do you do?" Oh, it just struck me, Anirudh, that you cannot start a conversation or ask or do anything in South Africa without the first line saying, "Hello, how do you do?" Because till 1992 as a history, they were ruled by Britishers. Okay, in 1992 they got freedom. So the pain that black empowerment went through over there, the culture has become that they demand respect, not just, it's very clear their presence has to be, experienced. So when you talk to someone and they take a pride to be a black today, if you go to Johannesburg, so you first greet them and then you start the conversation on whatever your requirement is. You go to a Woolworths shop, a departmental store, and you go to a counter after you buy all your daily groceries. And when you go to the counter at the bill counter to swipe your card, you say, "Hello, how do you do today?" And then you give your card and they say, "Hey, I'm doing fine. Hope you too had a great day." And then you exchange. So a very small thing about a culture, if you have to get done by people or work with them, how you have to be relatable. You have to ensure you connect with them as per their culture need. Just a small example. Similarly, if you do, I think today, if you ask me, none of my emails, start without "Hello, how do you do?" I've got so used to it now working with South Africans that it just is my second in nature.
That's the template, yeah.
And it's so nice,
Yeah.
when you ask, "Hello, how do you do?" It is so natural that somebody would respond saying that, "Yes, nice too."
I think different cultures teach you so many different things. And of course, I mean, not that Indians are rude.
course
It's
not.
just that,
Cultural difference.
cultural differences. Hai.
Yeah.
I also remember, like, from, my days in Gulf, that business meetings of in an hour-long business meeting is basically 45 minutes of catching up,
Ah.
5 minutes of discussing the business, and 5 minutes of like resolution, as in, okay, so you'll do this, I'll do that, shake hands, and that's it. Right. So, but the first 45 minutes is, how are you? How's your family? What's happening? How's the weather? So, I mean, of course, we're in Gulf and we're in Dubai and Qatar and all these lovely countries. So, what car are you driving? Okay, like this is the latest car. Yeah, because people notice you. What are you wearing? What's your watch? What shoes are you wearing? What car are you driving? वो सब चीज़ें हैं. So, but I think that's the standard template there. ऐसा नहीं कि, if you're not driving a particular car, people will disrespect you. But generally, you need to be very well dressed when you're in Gulf. If you want to command some respect, yes, you need to show that you are, you're mannered and, you dress in a certain way.
Yeah.
No one's asking how much money you have. But you show that you're well mannered. But yeah, so coming back to business meetings, like this is, that's culture. If you start talking business right in the first minute, people will think you're rude.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't you ask me about my family? Like, kaise chal raha hai, kya chal raha hai, how's your business? So, acha hai, very good. Do all the catching up of the world, then you talk business. And in fact, the best thing is there's something called Majlis, which is like the ghar mein, there's a whole area where there's a tent and, it's a place to catch up for friends and family. So, hum jaise ghar mein baithte hain, it's not like that. It's a dedicated place to catch up. It's called Majlis.
Oh, interesting.
So if you get called to a majlis by a sheikh or a businessman, that's a great thing that he's saying, come to my majlis, I'll introduce you to all my business partners, friends. And of course, majlis mein, most of the times it's the business deals that get closed. Business deals are not closed on a business table in an office.
Interesting.
It's outside. So that 45 minutes now, first you connect, then you get called. Once you become a part of that circle, then a business deal gets finalized. But yeah, it's fun learning from other cultures.
Indeed.
I haven't been lucky enough to work beyond Gulf. I've worked with, I think, Brits, Irish folks, but not so many Americans. But yeah.
Yeah, America, you can't waste your time. It's like waste of time if you
come to
say
business.
hello, come
Yeah.
to business, come
Yeah.
to the point.
Correct.
I mean, let's
Absolutely.
say like 5 minutes done this meeting and you're done.
Yeah.
You know, like
exactly ulta hai udhar Gulf mein. So that's there. Lovely.
Yeah.
But ये सारी चीजें तो होती है, but coming back to our culture, our life and work, POV, I especially wanted, because you're someone I know really well. We know each other for a long time now. Women somehow have to do a lot more effort. Like you have to put in a lot more effort to achieve that work-life integration. Thoda sa doing well in both the work side and life, managing kids if there are any, managing family. Men somehow are a little lucky in that sense कि थोड़ा सा कम effort डालना पड़ता है. What's your point of view? Am I right, wrong? What's your opinion?
Indeed, our time, of course, not very far. So it did. We were the beach ke. I would always say na pura idhar na pura over. Today things are changing. Men are taking more responsibility.
Yeah.
I think they're sharing more, helping equally. Sometimes some men are also taking back seat.
Yeah.
And taking care of the kids. Things are changing. But yeah, in our time, I would not disagree that we had to put in a lot more effort at the home as well as at office. I'll be very honest, as a women leader, there's no work-life balance if you're aspirational. You have to carve out your way. For me personally, I was lucky that I had great in-laws. Both of them, when my daughter was born, they just took care of her. And initially, I was guilty of not being around. I'll be candid to you. My mother is also a very entrepreneurial woman. I've always worked. I used to feel guilty and I used to wonder, I'm not able to spend time, because my aspiration and my kid, between the two, I was thinking, when do I give this up? A lot of people would say, बचपन आपने देखा नहीं, इसका मिस कर दिया, ये कर दिया, जरूरी है, ये सब. It's a choice we have to make, what we want from life. When I was talking to my mother that I'm feeling sometimes guilty, my mom's made a statement, and a lot of things I feel my mother has been my idol more than any other. I don't get really swayed by the world so much. Sab ghar se shuru hota hai. Charity begins at home. For me, that's where I live, breathe. She made a statement that वो अभी 2-3 साल की है, उसको याद भी नहीं रहेगा.
Correct.
It is important for you to decide that when she is aware you're the mom, and she will always love you as a mom when you come home and all. But when she wants you the most, you have to decide to be there. That's all you need. Whether it is at a age, or it is when she's ill, or when she's every day happy with her grandparents, let it be. It is supposed to happen. And I realized that my guilt suddenly went. I realized, okay, if she's ill, I'm there. That's it.
Correct.
And if rest of the days, her grandparents are giving her all the love she needs. And when my daughter is a teenager today, and she needs me more, I feel we have more friendly conversations today.
Correct.
Today, she remembers my presence, whether I'm there or not, more than when she needs me. Then I think once she leaves this teenage and moves working, then it's a different. But at least what I built, whatever moments is what I would leave it. For all the mothers, you have to just create those important, critical moments to be there. And if you're not able to be there, it's okay. Just tell this is okay. Next time there will be another opportunity.
Correct.
Don't beat yourself, because in that moment, there was something else you were supposed to be for, and it's fine. I think my husband and also grew, I think, in the whole, we both grew together. We had our struggles. He's also pretty, at a top level right now. But we both, I think, grew together. We had our challenges. We were figuring out how to manage. But the best part, I would always say to all the women, make friends with your in-laws, whether you like it or not. Whatever, they are the ones who can really do for you. And I was lucky they did it for me.
Yeah.
I don't allow anything to fester too much or take it further. Don't allow one person to impact you so much. You make your choices. If this is the time you want to be aspirational, you be aspirational. And plan your house in such a way that you put all the infrastructure in place for the house to run on its own. I'm a woman, I don't like cooking. I don't like going to the kitchen. And I'm being very candid. Many women would love, my best friend loves going and cooking for her husband. And she's also an entrepreneur. But I didn't.
Yeah.
So I put a cook. Neither I wanted my in-laws to cook,
Correct.
nor I would cook. So I spent a lot of money to arrange for a good cook who can really have, cook a sumptuous meal for everybody and tasty meal,
Correct.
just not sumptuous. So it was taken care. So I had a person who could help my her grandparents to support them. So you put all that infrastructure in place so that the pain of or difficulties of the issue or situation completely deteriorates.
I agree.
I think that's the decision making you have to do if you have to take a path.
Achieving a sweet spot.
Yeah.
है ना वो सबको मिलके like the whole team together as a family,
Yeah.
as a unit, what's the sweet spot that we can hit?
Yeah.
And then everyone compromises a bit here and there, सबका करके.
And talk to them. You want to do all this. You can't do it if you don't have. It's like a business. Yeah, you go to a company. I can't do something until I have 4 influencers and 4 who have already bought in some of my stakeholders. So my family was my stakeholder.
Yeah.
To put a cook, I had to ensure they choose, they hire
Yeah.
the person they want to
Correct.
manage. It starts. My HR started at home.
Yeah.
So I asked them. I said, I am ambitious. I am aspirational about certain things I want to achieve. Is it okay? I need your support. How can we make this work? Have a better, have that decision making, have a plan, and get the ball rolling with them.
Correct.
So you are absolutely right. Find your sweet spot. Ensure the everybody is a decision maker.
Yeah.
Feels at least they're part of the decision making
Correct.
for sure, and make the decision and
Correct.
move on.
Somehow, I don't know how I can relate this to, because I come from media and
Okay.
my thing is audience.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I remember your Radio Mirchi days and all. Oh my God. Anirudh se pucho.
I know. You still remember? That's a fantastic thing. I had forgotten about it. But in terms of, hitting that sweet spot, we don't say you don't have to make everyone happy. The only objective should be you don't make anyone upset. You don't have to play everyone's favorite song. You just need to make sure that you don't play a song that upsets everyone. Right?
Absolutely.
So it's just that कि लोगों को खफा मत करो, बाकी लोग अपने आप खुश हो जाएंगे. Everyone will find their reason. So that's there. And in general, I think one luxury of life that comes in after you reach a certain level, I think वो होता है 35 plus के बाद ना, you reach at a certain level, you start earning well. And you get your trajectory कि हाँ अच्छा बाकी का अभी career में ये करना है. Like, you get a bit of clarity. Then you can start pursuing hobbies, your interests. Then you start saying, okay, I'm going to carve out some time of my 24 hours to do this. And you like doing something that is writing.
Oh yeah.
So why don't you tell about that?
Okay, so it came to me very recently, Anirudh. I never thought I could write. I come from a writer's family.
Is it?
Yeah. My grandfather was a very renowned writer, an award winner also in writing. It's a global award. It was Satya Sahit, when you say he's the award winner. But he used to write Tamil novels. I come from a Tamil family, a South family. And he used to write about women empowerment stories and novels, and very, 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 very futuristic novels. So I never thought, I could never read because I read his English translation. But the people used to tell me that, when grandfather used to write, grandpa used to write, I mean, you can't leave it. You can't leave the novel. So they made some Tamil movies also with his, he's pretty, he's no more, but he was very well known those days. So I never knew that I could write. It just out of the blue, when you have some mind space and you realize, and I realized that the way I worked, I have sometimes high emotions, low emotions. As human beings, you go through a lot of things. So during my difficult times of life, my way of releasing all my emotions was writing. I just started writing, and I realized that I could write poetries.
Lovely.
And to be honest, one of my colleagues in the present organizations, actually, let me call it out very openly, he is my manager also, my leader. He told me that you write well, why don't you publish? And I just joked about it. I said, you're just kidding me. I just said, nahi, bilkul bhi nahi. So he said, Arey, you at least send it to the publishers and see, right? So I said, I ignored it, and I just, kind of waited till this whole joke passed. But then, suddenly out of the blue, I said, okay, let me try. So one of my friend is a publisher. So first I spoke to him and I shared it with him. And he said, क्या बात है यार? तू लिखती है इतना अच्छा लिखती है. He's from Delhi. He also has a publishing house. So he said, publish it. I said, but what? How do you publish? You don't even know how to publish a book. I didn't even know. So he explained to me how to go about it, and then he gave me some references, and I sent a couple of my poetries. They immediately said they want to publish, and I didn't have to struggle. I'll be honest, I didn't do anything, and the book was out.
Lovely.
And after that, so the book is that's my first poetry book. So I realized my writing came through of course, emotions and everything, and the way it just happened.
Your book is called
Saanson Ka Safar.
And it's available on Amazon.
It's available on Amazon.
And any plans to write stories?
Yes. So I'm on my way. Oh God, when will I finish? I don't know. It may take years also. I've got stuck. I've just finished the 10th chapter, to be honest.
Oof.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I have not written for the last 4 months.
Okay.
I don't know why, but there's no, my creative mind is at lull right now. And I hope if I finish the novel, it'll be out. Lovely. So I'm realizing that there's some blood flowing from my grandpa to me now that I can write, but I'm stuck. Let's see.
Nice.
If I'll probably publish.
Hindi, English?
English this time.
Okay.
The first one was Hindi, and this one is English. So being at Ambram, most of the people said, "Oh, Hindi mein tune." My classmates and my Delhi friends said, "Oh, तूने हिंदी में लिखा है." But I come from that culture, right?
Yeah.
Where Hindi people speak day in and day out.
Yeah.
So my Hindi became very good with that space that I grew up.
So you're a Tamilian growing up in Delhi. So
Delhi, born and brought up in Delhi. Yeah.
Very
So that's how it happened.
Yeah.
So now English novel. Let's hope it comes out soon.
I think there are so many topics that we could, of course, keep going on.
Yes.
But this has been absolutely amazing. Wishing you all the best for your book as well.
Thank you.
And of course, I will be in the line to buy the book during the launch event. That's, of course, there. And keep doing your good work. I think there's a lot that we can learn from you again. So hopefully you will come on the podcast once again.
Sure.
And we'd love to have a longer chat.
Yeah.
And
let it keep it more personal that time with my book.
yeah. And of course, lots more stories to share.
Absolutely.
Maybe we can have a lot more conversation about our college days also.
Absolutely.
My God. Probably you'll have to remind me because I've forgotten everything. But
you were very naughty in the college.
Is it?
Oh, and
I've
always in
already.
front by the
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank
Priya.
you. Pleasure.
It was so amazing. Well,
Same here.
that was Priya. And probably, next time she's on the podcast, we'll have a lot more discussion about colleges and college में क्या होता है and college में क्या सीखते थे और आज क्या करना पड़ रहा है. A lot more different life now, of course. And glad that you're sticking around till now. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. इस channel का objective यही है कि we share conversation about work, life, success, something that will bring you value. And that's the idea of this channel. So if you think that our conversation brought you some value, please do subscribe. Share it with someone who might need this. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye-bye.